the Planning, Housing, Economic Development Committee, the Education and Culture Committee. It is October 28th, and we are meeting as a joint committee today, as we do, to take up workforce development. We are taking up a number of questions about the ongoing operations and future of WorkSource Montgomery, as well as generally the county's workforce strategy. It is a joint committee. Chair Rice and myself and our committee members are here. And we are going to be joined by Jerome Fletcher, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and Leonard Howie, the CEO of WorkSource Montgomery. And not seeing Mr. Howie as of yet. Perhaps he also was having the technology issue. There was a little bit of a technology issue to get in because the county was streaming the county executive's press conference, and we can only stream one at a time. And so without being able to stream this meeting, it wouldn't be an open meeting. And so we delayed the start of this meeting so that it could be an open meeting. And having said that, Gene, if you don't mind texting or calling Mr. Howie, Secretary Howie, and we'll see if we can find out. This is also his third to last day, as we will get into. He's leaving. This is his last week. Okay, well, I guess we're going to wait. We can give him a second. Maybe we can make some comments while we wait. Okay. Why don't I turn it to Mr. Rice to start off with comments, and then I will ask before Ms. Parsons, if you could please let into the room Leonard Howie. Okay, you see him. Great. He's coming in. Okay. All right. So Mr. Rice could maybe kick it off, and then I'll follow up, and we can have council members may have comments, and then we'll get into the packet.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Reamer, and thank you very much to Mr. Howie, to ACAO Fletcher, to you, Mr. Smith, always doing a great job at laying out a great packet, but also giving us tremendous background information. Let me just say that this is a sobering moment for me, one which I had so much hope about the direction that WorkSource Montgomery was headed in under the able leadership of then interim CEO of WorkSource Montgomery, Mr. Howie. And, you know, I understand that things happen. And like I said yesterday, which I said today is a new day, I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. We move on. But certainly one in which I felt that we were in a positive direction because of all the challenges that we faced. And again, I want to be very clear, this wasn't executive induced from the standpoint of the leadership of WorkSource Montgomery not guiding us in the right direction. I really feel as though, unfortunately, that was the case, and we needed to have new leadership to really continue the innovative spirit that's necessary to make sure that our folks are employed and that our companies are connected to the very great career and tech pipelines that we have here in Montgomery County, to give our children promise and dreams about all the things that they can aspire to be. It's all incorporated in having a very strong workforce development program. And so from that perspective, it's a little frustrating to find ourselves in the place we are. But again, we are resilient. We are a great county, and we will rise above and continue to make things happen. And so I'm looking forward to the discussion today about how we can continue to rebuild WorkSource Montgomery, how we can continue to fulfill the promises that we've made to our constituents, which is to ensure that if you're looking for work, we will assist you. We will make sure that you're empowered. We will make sure that you're connected. All of those kinds of things are just incredibly important and a key tenet to a community that is successful. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you. I just want to thank everyone, and especially my colleagues who have been steadfast in this effort. We have been lockstep. And that is something. I mean, we have been lockstep in terms of our commitment to make this happen, you know. And so I just really want to, again, take an opportunity to applaud my colleagues, some of the best council members you'll ever find in one of the best counties in this nation, who understand that this hard work needs to get done. And didn't forget, within racial equity and social justice lens, to ensure that we're achieving all that we need to. And that's my nod to Councilmember Navarro, because she has certainly ingrained in me how all of this work needs to make sure that we have that at the center and forefront of our focus. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair Rice. Again, a little context here. We're meeting today. We have a packet that lays out. Michelle Parsons, if you could mute, please. Michelle Parsons, if you could mute, please.
Michelle Parsons, you need to mute. We can hear the laughter, which we love hearing, but we need to mute.
There you go. All right. We have a packet that walks through some significant issues, some significant questions that we're going to talk through today. We don't necessarily have to resolve final issues today, but there's a lot of bigger questions that we have about the future of workforce development. All right, Gene, can you call Michelle, please? And so the packet walks through a number of substantial issues. A couple weeks ago, Co-Chair Rice and I sent a memorandum to the executive branch laying out a number of questions that we had about the future of workforce development. I am incredibly frustrated. I know Mr. Rice is, I know Ms. Navarro is, I know everyone is. We have been working on this now for a year and a half. The county executive expressed a view on the future of workforce development 2 years ago, and yet we find ourselves here today in many ways spinning wheels that do not need to be spun, without traction. We have Secretary Howie, who we're sort of like the Red Sox. He's moving on to the Yankees now. He was waiting for a contract, and we're grateful for Mr. Howie's time today to share some strategic vision for us about the way forward. And we wish you the best, and we're grateful for the time that you spent helping us through this transition period. As the packet demonstrates, the council was very united in hoping that we'd be able to convince you to stay. And we don't have to get into all the reasons why you've decided to move on to frankly greener pastures, but we understand. So we're going to take the chance today to get your, kind of an exit interview in a way, and get some guidance from you so we can, keep on track here. This is very serious. I mean, we are in the midst of one of the worst crises facing our county's workforce that we've seen in generations. It's a very difficult time, and it has felt like we have had to, frankly, conduct driver training, with all year, a year and a half, and we need to be moving forward assertively. And I think the council has tried very hard to push on this, and I think we've gotten to the crisis point. So hopefully now we can pull together and make this thing happen. I think that frankly is where we're at now. Like we've hit bottom. We need to pull together, and we need to make it happen. And again, we're grateful that Secretary Howie, previously Maryland Secretary of Labor, is here to share some remarks or some guidance with us. And what the packet kind of outlines is some key choices. Do we want to continue working with Worksource Montgomery? Do we want Worksource Montgomery to continue contracting with a third-party organization for the operation of the job centers? How do we want to handle the kind of broader workforce strategy policy and policy making and program building? And so those are some questions that hopefully we can get clarity on again today, and provide little bit clearer of a path forward. So Councilmember Navarro has been working on this issue, as assiduously as any council member, and I know she's would like to share some comments. Ms. Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So last year, I had the privilege of being council president, and one of my first, items on the list was to modify the way that we provide oversight to this issue of workforce development by combining the PHED committee and the Education and Culture committee, making this a joint committee oversight function because it is so central to a lot of those issues that both committees address. Secondly, it was to work with colleagues. Mr. Smith was amazing in terms of staffing this effort. The college, the executive, many meetings over at the executive building, second floor, to deconstruct and come up with a path forward and some options, understanding that workforce development is so central to everything that we need to do. This is why it's a pillar of our economic development platform. It is so critical. And so a lot of work went into all of this. And I remember in the summer being so thrilled to have an opportunity to speak and meet with Secretary Howie virtually to talk about the plans and also the issues that we needed to address. So of course I was extraordinarily dismayed when I got the news because, again, this is such a central issue for Montgomery County, which now has been absolutely exacerbated because of the pandemic. Now it becomes even more of a central issue. So I want to thank Secretary Howie for time and also for his strategic thinking around this. I can't wait to hear some of that feedback. But I want to underscore that as one council member who had to play a central role all of last year as council president, this is very disappointing. It is very disappointing to have to be here. There is a long list of things that we have to take care of, and I was really glad to have put this one aside. But here we are, having the same conversation, really starting from scratch, to be honest. And it doesn't bode well for the issues and the needs in our county. And so this is the work. We will roll up our sleeves again. We will dig into this, and I hope that we can come up with a definitive, proactive approach here that really fulfills our goals. But again, I'm very disappointed, and it didn't, I don't think, had to be this way. But as Council Chairman Rice said, we continue on and we see where we land. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make those remarks.
Very, very good. Councilmember Girondo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to both chairs and to my colleagues. This is I'm right where I needed to be today as a member of both of these committees, but also I think in a unique position, having been a contractor and worked with Worksource Montgomery a number of years ago prior to being on the council to set up Summer Rise and run its inaugural year. Shout out to Councilmember Rice. I remember I came before this body asking for money, which was aptly given, and I think I spent it well. It was one of unfortunately, one of the few bright spots in the track record in the history of WSM, and so I've known, as Councilmember Navarro said, we're going to have to dig into. We've been digging and trying for a while, and I think we've gotten to a point now where, the slate is clean, and we're going to have to build up from the ground up. And I'm glad we've taken the steps we have to get the board together. We'll discuss that. I'm glad that we've, I think we'll have some consensus hopefully coming out today on where we need to focus the work of WorkSource and our workforce development system and where the most urgent needs are. And Mr. Howie, your opinions on that are going to be highly valued, having kind of had an assessment here over the last several months. I, too, am sad that our loss will be Baltimore County's gain. but I guess if there's any solace that you'll still be in the state of Maryland. And so we're happy to hear that. But I want to say that, to underscore some points, this was urgent and important a year ago, but now it's at a critical level. If you look at how we try to recover in the role of WorkSource Montgomery, particularly the American Job Centers, and the role inside the Clark's inside our correctional facility, but also the other external job centers, the job that they have in front of them to connect our residents to employment that are unemployed, and to help with the upskilling and training of residents who need to seek employment has never been more important. We know that this recovery, as we try to build back and still deal with the pandemic, but as we work to recover, has not hit everyone equally. And the people and the residents that are in most need of these services are residents of color, our immigrant community, our most vulnerable residents already who have been hit hard by this pandemic. It was reported a couple weeks ago, I've mentioned this, but I think it's just important to always remark as we work on this issue. This recovery has been and probably will continue to be, which is why this is so important, one of the most unequal that we've ever seen. Of the people who've lost their jobs since the spring, only 30% or so of African Americans have retained employment who lost it in the spring in the throes of the pandemic. It's just slightly better for Latino residents compared to close to 80% for our white residents. This is a serious situation, and we need a highly functioning, capable workforce development system that at its core focuses on our most vulnerable residents, giving them the training and the skills that they need to connect to jobs. At the same time, we have to look at the whole system and the high-tech jobs and the other types of jobs of the future that we want to have here. But I think to drop the ball and not focus on that core work, especially right now, would be malpractice on our part. So I hope we will get into this discussion. I think Gene has done a great job in framing the issues. And again, Mr. Howie, sorry to see you go, but appreciate you coming today, and look forward to hearing from the administration as well, Mr. Fletcher, about their vision and role. So thank you to the chairs.
Very good. Mr. Friedson.
Thank you. I'll just be very brief here. A lot has been said, and a lot has been said prior to this meeting, and hopefully we can get into how we move forward from here more than anything. But I share the concerns, I share the interest, I share the urgency of my colleagues here, and that's not new. And it's obviously disappointing that at a time when we need a robust workforce development apparatus, not just an organization, not just a board, but a continuum of services and of strategy. When we need it more than ever, it seems that we are not moving as quickly or as strategically or as intentionally as where we need to go. And in fact, the one positive that we have seen, the big positive of rallying behind a fearless leader and being pleased with the direction things seem to be going in, we seem to be back to where in some ways we were. So hopefully there is a plan. Hopefully there is a strategy. I continue to believe that this is primarily the county executives' leadership that we desperately need here, executive leadership to push this effort forward. I will say I'm disappointed as well that this is an exit interview to some extent, although exit interviews are very important for us to understand based on expert advice and somebody who's been in the trenches, so to speak, of what the opportunities are for us to move forward. But Mr. Howie, a good friend of mine, County Executive Oshesky, made a good hire here. We wish you well and look forward to your strategic advice and thoughts of how we move this forward in Montgomery County. And I do believe that what's good for Baltimore County is good for Montgomery County. What's good for Montgomery County is good for Baltimore County. And hopefully we can all pull this in the right direction. We've got to find a way to connect people who don't have jobs to jobs, particularly now when our unemployment is higher than any of us can ever remember, that we help people who are in jobs move into higher skilled jobs, which has got to be a central part of what we do in Montgomery County as a high cost, high skill environment, and that we ensure that our workers and the expertise and skills of our workers is appropriate and congruent with the needs of our economy, and not just where our economy was and not just where it is, but where we think and where we want it to go. And so hopefully that can be a key part of this, and to see not just where and what WorkSource does as part of that, but where every part of county government, every part of the county more broadly, education system, college, county government, executive branch, legislative branch, how we work together to accomplish those goals. That's the work before us, and it's never been more important than it is now.
Great. Okay. Before I go to the executive branch, to share reflections, I thought I would turn to Secretary Howie, and he can at least get us. We don't. This doesn't have to be a comprehensive
Right.
remarks. We have a packet to work through. We'll turn to you in the course of the dialogue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing that I share with the WorkSource Montgomery staff all the time is to look at the glass and determine whether it's the state of liquid in it. Is it half full? Is it half empty? In this case, I honestly believe it is half full, and not just half full with half water and half air, but it's actually half full moving forward, because for the first time that I can see, there is a kind of a commitment, a galvanizing around what the core purpose of not just WorkSource Montgomery is going to be, but of how the county is going to address workforce development. This is not something that's new, in my opinion, for Montgomery County. As you stated earlier, I was labor secretary, and there were similar things going on with Montgomery County and its overall participation and focus compared to some of the other counties. So I'm looking at this as a wonderful opportunity, really, to understand what the focus should be. There was a conversation that we had in one of the recent meetings of the local area directors, of which Montgomery County is one of the 12 local areas in the state. And the comment turned around, centered on how some of the areas were going to spend all of this state and federal money that they were getting, and that they were afraid they were going to have to turn in some money that has been provided, not just doing COVID recovery efforts, but just the normal formula spending that they provide. And there were a handful of areas that kind of shared that concern. And I interjected, and this is relevant for us here, I interjected and said, well, in my onboarding with WorkSource Montgomery, one of the major criticisms that I heard coming in was WorkSource's unwillingness or inability, or just haven't really participated in the capacity building component of workforce development within the county. Now, I'm not sure that it's WorkSource Montgomery's job to build the capacity of everybody in the county, but it is definitely WorkSource and the Workforce Development Board's job to ensure that all of the resources that come to the county wind up in the hands of the entities that are best suited to execute the mission. So as I look forward to this discussion today, it is, as you all noted, it is much broader than WorkSource Montgomery. This is about workforce development in the county and the roles that the entities in it who are charged with workforce development, what they should focus on. And so I'm excited to have this conversation. And I do believe that all of the pieces are in place. The work that you did last year was really pivotal in helping us, I think, to get to where we need to be. And that's, of course, broadening the the definition of workforce development organization, who can receive funds on behalf of the county, and getting the board up and running, working with the executive to make sure that happens. Because we didn't have that before. The focus of the board that would focus on workforce development, kind of irrespective of WorkSource Montgomery or independent of WorkSource Montgomery. So I think that's a good thing. And I do get to see what goes on around the state. And yes, there are many things that need to be done here, but we're not as far behind as some might think. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, sharing some thoughts. Mr. Smith did a wonderful job, I think, collecting all of the information, synthesizing it, and helping to focus this discussion. So I'm just looking forward to being a part of that.
Thank you. Very good. Mr. Fletcher.
Good afternoon, excuse me. Good afternoon, Councilman Reamer and all council members. Thank you for having me today on behalf of County Executive Mark Elrick. I look forward to answering your questions regarding the packet. I believe I won't regurgitate some of the answers that we put in there because I know they'll come up in discussion, but I do want to sort of just say a couple of things. One, I've known Mr. Howie since probably February or March, and he has done a great job, and I have appreciated our working relationship with him. And on behalf of County Executive Mark Elridge, we thank him for his service and what he has done, the lessons learned he will share today, as well as the pieces he has put in place while he has been here. And I do share the disappointment. I remember when I heard that, he had chosen to move on, the disappointment and, all the same feelings that council sort of reiterated a few moments ago. But I think that to say that we are starting over from scratch and we are in the same place that we were last year is a gross misstatement. That is a failure to acknowledge what he has done in the 8 months that he's been here. What he said, even the pieces that we have are in place and not as far as some as people think we are. We are not, the sky is not falling right now. I don't remember, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, if someone said something was wrong with the direction we were going in prior to Mr. Howie saying that he was leaving. I don't remember a meeting or a phone call. If I'm correct, I believe that the committee met with Mr. Howie and other stakeholders in June. I don't think that anything came out of that meeting that said we were going in the wrong direction. Mr. Howie, leaving is a loss for this county. That is for sure. But moving on and picking up the pieces is something we have to do and something that we are all charged to do. And I do understand that the county council now wants to have the discussion again about which workforce development organization should be the one to lead us forward. And I think that the information that Mr. Howie is going to get should shape your choice. The executive branch, myself included, will do everything within our power to execute on who you designate as a workforce development organization.
Mr. Chair, I thought today was going to be a new day. I really did. But I find myself having the same feelings that I had yesterday. Because Mr. Fletcher, you just brought it out of me, and I just don't know what it is. So I'm just going to be frank with you and real with you like I am with everybody else. What you just said is incredibly disruptive to the current relationship that we are trying to continue to forge between the county executive and the county council. You know very well that all of us were talking about the leadership of how we move forward, because it is exactly what you said. The leadership of Mr. Howie that led to, please put your hand down, because, sir, I'm not resigning the floor to you as the co-chair. I recognize that you want to speak, and I'll certainly call on you when it's time. This is one of the things that, for me, continues to be a problem when it comes to how we're going to move forward between the county council and the county executive in fostering a positive workforce development program. Because if we continue to have these disconnects in terms of the lack of understanding about what it is that we're talking about how our faith was in the leadership of Mr. Howie, to hear the things that he just espoused and said, and I agree with you, you're right. We acknowledge the great work that he's done in setting us up. But the reality is that that's a part of leadership too, and you have to steward that through. Yes, things have changed. And he's made changes that will stay in place. But the reality is not having that leader to see those changes through is also a challenge. And I will tell you that County Executive Elrich, as our leader of the county, if he's not in that position any longer, some of the things and the passions that he has will fall by the wayside regardless of what he's put in place. That's just the function of what a leader does. And so that's why we're lamenting. We're lamenting about the fact that we don't have the leader who put the pieces in place to actually see them come to fruition, to actually see the successes and continue to nurture the gains and the growth that we have in the department. It is not to say and sort of disavow the great changes that were made. But those changes also were made at the impetus of the county council. Let's just be very clear about that, and our conversations with Mr. Howie about what was important and what we wanted to see have happen. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Reamer.
Thank you. I'll call on you, Mr. Fletcher. You can put your hand down. If you want to speak during the session at any time, of course, you're welcome to text me, or you can signal, although sometimes I'm looking at my screen rather than the Zoom screen. I certainly strongly concur with Mr. Rice's comments. I think we have been really seeking executive branch leadership. The executive came in seeking major changes. To us, I think to a lot of us, it felt like he was good at tearing the organization down, hasn't taken the steps to build it up. We were hoping with Mr. Howie we were on the right track. There was a fumble there. And now we're back at the table and trying to figure out the way forward. We're going to make some, the law says the executive, as the highest elected official of the county, is the primary, elected official, the primary decision maker, the person most responsible. And so, I think it has taken the executive a lot of time to absorb that and to use that. I think that's been a challenge. So here we are. Okay, Mr. Fletcher, did you want to say something, or shall we proceed with the packet?
I just wanted to point out, yes, Mr. Howie is leaving, and yes, the Worksource Montgomery chair is already on the pathway of selecting candidates for his replacement. I believe Mr. Howie probably has more information than I do on that one, but I think when I talked to Mr. Howie last week, he said that the chairman of Worksource Montgomery, the third-party nonprofit, has, I believe 6 was the number that you referenced, Mr. Howie, of good candidates that have been received so far that we're going to be moving forward with replacing this leadership role that we are talking about. So I'm not 100% sure, is it the leadership role that is the issue because we're losing a great leader, or is it the structure that seemed to be working when we had a good leader, but now the structure is in question now that he's leaving? It's not really adding up to me, but I will sit quietly, Councilman Rimmer. I thank you for your time.
Yeah, we have wanted improvements in the operations of the organization. It was a very lengthy period of time where there wasn't clear direction coming from the executive branch through the organization to make those changes, despite comments from the executive as to what the executive might want to see, and I think a general concurrence from the council. And yet it wasn't really getting operationalized. I think that was a lot of our concern. And there was a lot of commentary and discussion about alternative models. And, I think some of those questions are nevertheless on the table. But I think we all felt like when we had Leonard Howie, we could rally behind him. And Ms. Navarro, you've asked to speak, and then let's get into the packet. I think it might be easier for us to work our way through the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I have throughout the years learned to really appreciate the value of respect for the institution. So I'm a little bit concerned. I have to say, Mr. Fletcher, we usually don't interact in this way, especially with council members. But Mr. Fletcher posed a very important question, and I will attempt to answer that. The fact is that we had some issues with both the structure and the leadership. The fact is that we spent the better part of last year working on finding some options and some scenarios, including the bill that I introduced and the council fully adopted to give us some flexibility in terms of designation. Those were attempts at addressing the structure, including issues in terms of how the boards should perhaps, be kind of separate so there wouldn't be so much confusion. But we all agreed that we could make all the changes we wanted, but if we didn't have the proper leadership, this would not move forward. And we had the choice of literally like blowing everything up and starting from scratch, or recognizing that we could work with a new structure if we found the right kind of leader. And so I think that's, excuse me, my puppy. I think that's where we are, is that we were able to land on a good compromise to retain the structure, make some changes, and we were thrilled that we had what we felt after lengthy interview and conversations, a good leader to then get things going. So now we're kind of back on, in terms of, I believe, square one, in terms of who will that leader be that will be able to take the structure forward. So yeah, a lot of work took place, and I think we all just, let's roll up our sleeves and do this. But the question remained, if we don't have the proper leader in place, this is all for naught, which is now what we're going to have to address. So that's why we're here. And I think that's the frustration you're sensing, is that we all felt like things were taken care of. We're moving forward. We can go ahead. And now, of course, we're going to have to revisit how we're going to continue on. I really wanted to just frame that because, again, a lot of work took place last year, and I don't want that to somehow be minimized in terms of how that led to where we were, and now hopefully where we can be. Thank you.
Why don't we start with the packet, Jean? We'll work our way through, and we'll ask again, council members. Raise your hands or text me. The same thing for Mr. Howie, Mr. Fletcher. If you want to share a comment or so as we go.
Certainly. Picking up where Ms. Navarro left off in terms of structure and leadership, I mean, the council staff has tried to take a very large and complex system today. And as Chair Reamer already said, I don't know if we'll have an opportunity to go through every possible permutation for the workforce development system, but I tried to provide opportunities to make some concrete decisions. In particular, I mean, there is a council designation for the workforce development organization. It has a shot clock. It expires at the end of June of 2021. And so we know that WorkSource is moving through a new leadership selection process. And so this seems like a great opportunity for the committees, even though there's no specific resolution in front of you today, to signal whether to continue with WorkSource or not, because it'll give us 8 months to work with the county executive if that's not the case. And if we do continue with WorkSource, what are some of the parameters and expectations that the council has? Because as noted in the council staff report, I think previously the expectations were high, the mandate broad, and that's possibly some of the reasons why we were trying to run before we learned to walk. I think Mr. Howie has said in several meetings I've had with him, and I concur. Just quick I mean, we could spend a lot of time on background. I'm going to just talk about two that are mentioned in the memo. The Workforce Development Board is a federally mandated board. It's local, and the executive is the chief local elected official that oversees that board. Under Mr. Leggett, the council gets a confirmation process involved in that, so the council did confirm the reconstituted board earlier this year. And as I noted on page 3, there's a lot of things that board does for the county in terms of meeting the federal mandate. But more specifically, the federal mandate doesn't dictate structure to local counties. how that should happen, what that should look like. That's left up to the local jurisdictions, or in the state, the local workforce development areas, if they're not a one county by themselves, in terms of how that structure looks. And so the county executive and council need to work together on how the structure is implemented. And previously, the structure in 2015 was changed to a public-private partnership where WorkSource would be the main lead of our workforce development efforts, and also would staff the Workforce Development Board. I just want to put a pin in the board because I'm going to come back to it later when we talk about some items related to WorkSource. And then the other one is obviously the council designation process. The council has a designation process. It needs to be set for every 5 years. And certainly, and the executive must approve that designation for the Workforce Development Organization. And as Ms. Navarro noted, the council changed the law, so there's one or two entities that can be designated right now. There's nonprofit organizations, public education institutions, or both. And so in the packet, you can see that sometimes I refer to one or more than one, and that's because it's really up to the council to decide how many they want. But today I thought, given the fact that WorkSource's designation would expire, a good bite-size option would be to decide how do we want to move forward with WorkSource. Do you want to continue to see it as one of the workforce development organizations? And if so, are there some parameters that the council, these committees want to put around it as we consider drafting a resolution in the early next year to continue the work of WorkSource Montgomery? So I will pause there. I have certainly certain recommendations should the committees want to continue with WorkSource. Mr. Fletcher can speak to the executive's comments that I summarized, but can speak to more clearly. And then obviously Mr. Howie can also give his opinion regarding that. But council staff definitely, given the infrastructure needed to run the job centers and the other partners that we could consider doing this and focused on COVID, I do not see a reason not to try to start with WorkSource, knowing that we have the opportunity to kind of provide guidance and guardrails to the new leader to define that organization's success.
Great. All right. Why don't we start with Mr. Rice, and then I have a comment, and then anyone else in turn.
Well, thank you. So, look, and I'd really like to hear from Mr. Howie because I think that his great work. So I'm going to yield to Mr. Howie to kind of weigh in terms of where we are, where you believe the progress has been made to allow us to move forward, understanding that, again, we don't have leadership in place that's going to carry us through. So making sure that we can still rely upon these things to actually happen that you've put in place. Because I think that that's one of the things, again, that I think is lost in this, is that, again, without a captain of the ship that's driving these things home, folks can continue to do what they want, which is what we saw last time. That's what we saw under the leadership of Ford. Folks could kind of do whatever, and so we didn't have that really sort of convening towards a certain point. So, Mr. Howie.
Here we go. All right, thank you. The structure, what we have in place. I think in some of my earlier meetings, not just with the council, but especially in the onboarding process of the Workforce Development Board, one point that I really tried to stress was the importance of accepting and carrying out our role as one of the 12 local workforce areas. Sometimes meetings are a drain on people. You don't want to go to too many meetings and then become boring and tedious. However, in that context, the discussion at that level, at that state level, you get a lot of discussion about resources that are available, issues that local areas are having, bouncing ideas off one another. Re-engaging meaningfully Montgomery County in that process, I think, has been one of the most valuable things that was done during this time period, because first, for starters, it reintroduced us to the state. Now, of course, I have a little inside track there, but it did reintroduce us to the state and acknowledged the many challenges that we had. Because as I'm came on board, one of the one of the conversations that I had was a lot of the frustrations that the council and the executive had about our performance. And so it kind of went around the horn and came back down, but just to provide the opportunity to discuss and to share experiences, and then quite frankly to find out that a lot of discussions were actually never held, or they were held on a very superficial level. And once you start digging into it, you see that it really wasn't all that difficult. It wasn't all that challenging. You just had to talk about it. For example, when you look at the resources that are available to the county that come down from the state, a lot of the special grant opportunities are discussed at the weekly meetings and in direct communication with the state. We are currently have been approved working with our core partner, Montgomery College, for an emergency dislocated worker grant. Now, it's a $500,000 grant. It's not an insignificant sum. The state, the way they have to disperse the funds, you don't get it all at once, and they have to kind of do what they have to do to get you the money. So you wind up not being able to get the amount that you wanted up front to start, so we have to retool. But just an example, though, of resources that the Montgomery County workforce system can just go and grab when those opportunities come about. We didn't always do that. There were some opportunities. There were earned grants out there that we did go for historically. But some of these special opportunities, just really being engaged and finding out when they're coming down a pike, and then here's the dangerous word, partnering with other areas or just with other providers to actually try to make that happen. So the concept of working outside of the silo of WorkSource Montgomery or even of Montgomery County was really an important step to move forward. So there's that one pipeline of resources that are coming in from that. We call it summer youth, although it's fall now. But we also worked with, and this was after Mr. Fletcher connected us with HHS to help them launch a summer/fall/winter youth program, because there were some state funds that we could apply for and we got approved for. So the system is actually in place, regardless of who sits in the chair, to actually go and get the money and to develop the plans. You just have to do it now. You just have to execute and implement. So just the basic structure of WorkSource Montgomery within the context of operating the American Job Centers and everything that goes with that just makes a whole lot of sense to continue to do that. And one phrase that I'll borrow, since I think you said it, or I think Mr. Smith said it, the whole notion of running before you can walk, that's actually the major learning point here for me. The organization started off with very good intentions, but it was to be, the classic definition of a workforce intermediary, and you make all the connections and get all the projects going and have all the relationships and get the funding, external funding coming in. But the piece that's actually the most critical to making all that happen is being a solid operator of a job center system, a job center network. And the attention was not put on that. Had the contractor relationship, had a couple of them now. The relationship that we have now with Grant Associates is far better than with the prior contractor, and I've seen dramatic improvement moving forward. But you do have that layer in between WorkSource and the county that I know both the executive and the council really do want to address. But just understanding, though, that you really can't be good at all of the other, and I'll call them all the other fancy things, until you really get your structure set with operating the job center. And as I've spoken to many of you before, and frankly everybody on this call, most people on this call, you just take a look at East County, for example. What I see right away in talking with partners at HHS and I think we have a $150,000-ish grant to operate that. Boy, are the expectations not aligned up with the reality. What that East County needs is an operation that looks a lot like what we do in Germantown, with state resources available and WIOA funds available. Not what it is right now, but so you don't know that until you actually get your hands wrapped around what the WIOA functions are, what the American Job Center functions are, and what the real powers and authority of the Workforce Development Board are to help make a lot of this stuff happen. So the structure is there, and as I said in my beginning remarks, opening remarks, thank you, council and county executive, for, I know it took a while, but to get the Workforce Development Board in place, because that is the most critical component of this. You look around the state and the roles that each local area Workforce Development Board plays, they're pivotal. They really do drive a lot of what's going on, and that's going to be the case here. I like our board chair a lot, Mark Drury. He's very engaged, and that's another of the major pieces that are involved. So I think structurally, we have what we need, what we needed, and I know that Mr. Fletcher will recall from some of our early conversations in January and March, what we needed was the clear focus that this is what we as WorkSource Montgomery are going to focus on, and then it may take some time, but then to build all of the other workforce system partners to actually plan and implement, execute all of the other initiatives that really do define what a workforce system is. And as difficult as this pandemic is, I do applaud the executive on the recovery process that we've all been undergoing all summer. I had the privilege of facilitating the Workforce Development Work Group as part of the Economic Revitalization Mission Area. And we talk a lot of the same things that I know you all talked about over the years, but just to get that brain power focused on the issues, to lay out the recommendations, and then when you lay them out and you see what needs to be done and who needs to do them, all of these activities related to the American Job Center, that is, in my mind, that is solely within the purview of WorkSource Montgomery, and what I would what I would describe as its recast role of focusing on operating a world-class American job system. It's in place. We have the resources. We all talk about the great resources within the county, the employer base that's there, the education level. I mean, everything's there. But to have your entity and your WDO, Workforce Designated Development Organization, focused on that, you haven't really had that. And that's the new piece here. And I hope you all see it just in a very basic level in working through the recruitment process for my replacement. You start with acknowledging basic things like title. This is not a CEO thing. This is, you're running a program. So the executive director model is what makes the most sense, because then you start focusing on operating key programs and not so much, at least conceptually, as building organizations. That's down the line, something different. WorkSource hopefully will grow into those shoes down the road. But the immediate work at hand is just to be a solid operator of the job center network, which the state has been nothing but supportive of Montgomery County, especially since I've been here. And then moving forward, they espouse their support for Montgomery County to make sure that we get in the things that we need to get in to get the money and the resources and support that we need. So in my mind, the structure is there, and the focus, the signal that the council can send, the signal that the executive can send is, okay, WorkSource, we hear you. Run the best job center that you can run. Tell us how you're going to do it. We'll hold you accountable for doing it. But then we're ready to move forward there. So those are my thoughts on just the structure piece of this conversation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howie. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, let's focus on that. I think it's time to bring this into focus here. So Mr. Howie's comments are consistent, I think, with council staff's recommendation, which is let's agree that WorkSource Montgomery will continue to be the designated organization, particularly for the purpose of running the job centers. And let's have clarity that WorkSource is going to put the job centers, first and second, and is going to run that, with excellence. And in fact, we may indeed want to move away from having a contractor do that work. But we can, that's a sort of second question here. But squarely on the table, and Mr. Rice's co-chairs first, and then Mr. Juando, I see you're in the queue. Let's talk about this kind of core proposition that it's time to kind of solidify that WorkSource will be the organization and it'll focus on the job centers. It'll get that done. Mr. Rice.
Let me actually turn to colleagues, Mr. Chair, because I want to hear from them. You've heard enough from me, and I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I'll back clean up. So.
Okay. Well, I wanted you to like that idea because.
No. I like the idea. I mean, that's what we've been saying for a long time now. Is that's a direction that we should head in. I agree with staff. I think that. Look, when it comes to WorkSource Montgomery and my conversations with Mr. Howie, I do think that now they are positioned in a way. And again, I'm just one where, look, I mean, we're all leaders in our own respective things. And I believe that leaders play a key role in anything that happens. And so I do believe, regardless of what you have in place, that you have to have a good leader to shepherd and make sure that those results happen. And so a lot will be contingent upon who that person is. You can give a person a playbook and they decide not to follow it and throw it in the trash can and do their own thing. Seen it before, fought against it before. I mean, so again, it's great to have, but it's another thing to actually see it come to fruition. And so it's going to be imperative that whoever we bring on board as an executive director, and Mr. Howie, I couldn't agree with you more in terms of how the framing of that position should be as an executive director, should embrace the ideology that you just espoused. I think that that's incredibly important. And so that should be a key tenet. And so I know that Mr. Fletcher is here and listening. And so I hope that he translates that to the county executive. I know when I have my personal call with the county executive, I will have that direct conversation with him as well about what my expectations are as an individual council member and my thoughts, but certainly one in which, look, yes, focus on the job centers, make them the best that they can be. And then we need to have a conversation about what else we're going to do with some of the other functions that WorkSource Montgomery currently has.
Very good. Continue the conversation. Mr. Juanda.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Howie, for the framing. On these points, I do think it should be the job center 1, 2, and I'll even say 3 as well. I think that should be the focus.
I had the one up, didn't you?
No. I'm agreeing with you. It's vigorous agreement. And I agree with the title change to reflect the role. I do think that, and Mr. Howie was getting at this, and I know he's said it to me personally and probably others as well, who is hired for the position, this question fundamentally shapes that decision. So I'd like to know a little bit from Mr. Fletcher or Mr. Howie or whomever. You don't have to get specific names, but as far as the skill set of the people that we would look to hire, if there's consensus that comes out today, which it sounds like there may be, that the job center should be the focus, the type of person in the WIOA skills, for example, and background, which has always been a weakness, going back 3 years when I was affiliated with WorkSource, of the people who actually understood how the law functioned and what the responsibility was. That would seem to be a top priority in the job description and in type of person that was brought in. So I'd like to hear about that. And then the secondary question, which we should get into as well, of contractor versus no contractor, that's going to depend on who the WorkSource staff are, again, and what their skill sets are and their ability and competencies to manage and operate the job centers. So it's less for me about whether we have a contractor or not. The thing that I saw and have seen in our investigations and work and talking with the state was the and that the state pointed out in documents that I shared with colleagues was the lack of oversight of the contractor. And so I don't think it's not just whether we have a contractor or not. It's what is the competency of the executive director and the staff at WorkSource to then either manage themselves the job center, which is a large task, or to delegate and then oversee that management. And so if between Mr. Fletcher and Mr. Howie, whoever could comment on those aspects. Jerome, you haven't spoken in a while, so maybe you can go first, and then we go to Mr. Howie, maybe.
And I'll be brief, Councilmember Jawando. On your first point, Mr. Howie has seen the resumes of those who are submitting their interest. I have not, so he can speak more to the skill sets that he's viewed over the course of the time. And the second one I'll say is the Workforce Development Board Chair, Mark Jury. I believe that when we had our call last week, although WorkSource Montgomery Chair Gordon Ellis was not on the call, they all agreed that going toward this model that you referenced, that Leonard, that Mr. Howie has endorsed, is where we need to go. But that staff will need to be hired with that skill set. The existing staff does not have that skill set, nor do we have enough to do that. It will have to be a concerted effort to say that we're bringing this in-house. We need to go out and get the right people and then bring them to our sort of.
So is it the county executive viewpoint that that's the route we should take to bring those staff on and hire those additional staff to do that? That's
yes.
The executive's viewpoint.
Yes, county executive has no problem with that pathway.
Okay, Mr. Howie.
And one thing that we're doing, we're trying to be very deliberative about this process. Everybody spent a lot of time getting the Workforce Development Board up and running. I know I spent a lot of time getting them oriented to what we're going to do. And the very first task that the board had or has is to really dig into this issue, to determine what is the best way to move forward with how we structure and operate the American Job Center. The program committee within the board has met several times on its own and with staff, WorkSource staff, to get input into that question. Originally, I think I talked about this at one of our earlier sessions, you had three options, we all know: bring the whole function back to county government, leave it as it is with a contractor in place, or bring it in under WorkSource and grow WorkSource Montgomery into the actual operator. We all know that of all of the local areas that have a 501c organization operating it, we are the only ones that actually contract out that Title I function, that adult and dislocated worker function out. So we're sort of a unicorn in that respect within the state of Maryland. Other areas that it can be more common. But I did favor that approach that the program committee was doing, because they were taking very organized, focused, systemic look at what's needed. We're now at the performance piece of that discussion. So they're looking at the performance measures, what's being measured, what needs to be measured, and how we're shaping up to really determine, because we know that there are going to be changes, clearly, on how the job centers are organized and operated, but this process will also feed in to the gaps that we know are there with existing staff, with new staff that will need to be brought on to, as you say, to actually understand, monitor, and or implement these programs. So that's not a light lift. So every bit of information that we get in that process is going to be extremely valuable to just ensure that we get as much information as possible. Now, as far as the it's more directly with the contractor and how we're organized there. One of the first things that I saw, that I know that you all saw right away as well, was the contractors, the current one and the previous one. Contractors will do what their contract allows them to do, and the fewer people you have on staff who actually are really understand everything that takes place under WIOA, the fewer people you have, that will complicate the ability to be successful in providing that function. So we know we need to build that out. We know we need to understand that. But the fingers, it comes right back to WorkSource. WorkSource from the beginning did not have that as a central mission. Therefore, it was a contractor. They do it. Let us know how it goes. And we know how that story has played out. So that focus, that refocus means that you asked about the skill sets of the people coming in, of the candidates that we're looking at. Clearly, there has to be a knowledge of WIOA. There has to be experience at operating some type of operation that has employment in it. It doesn't have to be another one-stop center somewhere around the state, but as long as you can demonstrate just what it takes to operate in an environment where people come in off the street, you determine whether they are eligible for programs and services, and then you place them, and then you monitor them, customer service. So all that skill set is something that currently the contractor has, but and as I have that, but moving forward with the next executive director, and or how the organization plays out, whether it's a deputy, somebody in the leadership has to have that piece of it.
Well, one of the things that's so important in those decisions is the cost as well, because if you're talking about bringing in, I know the WorkSource staff, how it was how it roughly is organized. The amount of people, the Grant and Associates that were running the job center in Wheaton, for example, when it was there, there's 10, 12, I don't know how many people it was, but there's a significant amount of people. And if that's going to be embedded into or absorbed rather into the WorkSource staff, the WorkSource budget would have to grow. I would think. I don't know how much the contract was, but I'm assuming all the program committee is digging into all that. But that's one of the considerations. I just want to raise the consideration of cost versus everything you're saying. The organizational skills, the substantive knowledge of WIOA, the customer service, the operational skills, all that of the ED and or the staff. Those are all big considerations.
Yeah, and don't forget that the funding that comes down to pay for those WIOA services, that's state funding. So as in this model, it should WorkSource completely take over that. As WorkSource takes over, that's the state funding stream. Now, the other pieces though, all of the priorities that the county has that might not be squarely within that model, then we'd have to talk about that. Because, for example, when you talk about corrections, there are going to be resources that fit cleanly within the WIOA structure. But there may be some activities that are specific to a county funding stream. When you talk about reentry navigators, for example, and we talked about that at Councilmember Rice's most recent meeting on this topic, that might require a discussion to see how we can enhance that function with county resources, but understanding though that there are state resources coming to that. So the growth in budget in WorkSource, assuming more and more control over the actual operations, is the state funding stream.
Yeah, well, I get that. I'm sorry, this is my last question. I just meant the point of it might cost more of the state money to run it through WorkSource than it would to do a contractor, and which could, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't, but which could free up or not free up money that's WIOA money that could be used for something else. So, for example, when we did Summer Rise, we were able to use some of the federal via state money to support the summer jobs aspect, the salaries of Summer Rise.
Yeah.
So I just mean there's a decision that is an interplay there. That's all I mean.
Right. And quite frankly, that's one of either the skill sets that the ED should have to understand how the system works. That's you don't have to be the classic policy wonk, to do this. You may not want that because you do need a leader that's fiscally going to be present and moving and motivating and all that. But that's a knowledge base that you're right that is actually critical.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good discussion. So just to clarify for those following discussion, we're talking about really two related points. The first is, do we want WorkSource Montgomery to focus on the job centers first, second, and third? Because that is a direction that it has not been the existing direction to the organization. So providing that as very clear guidance, that guides the hiring of the staff. That guides the hiring of the CEO. And then secondly, do we want the organization to build towards a model of running those job centers directly rather than relying upon a contractor? I'd like to hear what everyone thinks about the second question. I suspect it may be premature to try to answer that question, as opposed to say we have an aspiration that WorkSource Montgomery will run that program directly. However, we'll need to hear as we go, are you getting to the point that you can take it over, or do you have to renew for the next year? Or, so I think we want to hear Mr. Howie's general thought about that. But first, I think we should also make sure that we're all, kind of talking through and on the same page about the first point, which is an essential one. Do we want the organization to focus on the job centers, get it right, hire somebody with experience in the job centers, hire the staff, start hiring the staff to run the job centers, working towards a goal, then secondarily of running the programs all directly. So council members to comment on that. See my co-chair expresses his enthusiasm there, and could ask Mr. Howie, just again, I know
I was on the list to speak.
Great, you're up.
Requested. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you restated that. I do agree with the primary function. I do agree also that we should evaluate, of course, how it's going. I think that ownership would be important, and most specifically, making sure that there's a clear understanding that the staff has to understand and reflect our population and have those very important capacities to serve our population. Because if there's a disconnect there, then it doesn't matter how much we try to put forth certain goals, we're going to still hear the same feedback that we have heard for so long. So it's not a necessarily easy task because, Montgomery County it's an awesome and complex county, but we know that things like cultural proficiency, language proficiency, all of those things are going to be key if we're going to realize the goals that we set forth. So I just want to make sure that is clearly, understood and stated. But the answer is yes. I guess yes. And let's see how it goes in terms of ownership of this particular assignment, or does it have to be contracted? I would hope that we could do it, through WorkSource Montgomery specifically, because I do believe that can lead to a lot more ownership of the issue.
Right. Exactly. That's a very good point. Mr. Friedson.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I got to be honest. I get more confused every time we have these conversations. To a certain extent, I'm a little confused as to how we are determining what the structure of WorkSource Montgomery is going to be if we haven't quite decided whether it's going to be a contracting entity, it's going to directly be the contractor. I mean, currently it's basically set up to do contracting outside of county government, as far as I can tell. We're now talking about moving some functions back, but having WorkSource hire directly and not outsource as much. I'm just a little confused as to how we have the candidates that were discussed before to lead an organization when we haven't determined exactly what it was going to do. So I'm not sure if we're here today to decide if this is the direction we want to go in and get the buy-in of the joint committee and the council to move forward in this direction, if we're being told this is the direction that the county executive has decided with WorkSource and this is where it's headed and we're giving feedback to what we're being told. I just want to have some level of understanding of where we are in the process, and because it seems like has been the case in every aspect of this, there's a part of the cart that is going ahead, and I'm not sure that everybody who are in the wagon knows where it's headed. And so I just think at a certain point we got to rein it in and decide what is the process for how we're going to decide where we're going, and then how we're going to get there and who's going to be driving what.
Okay.
Andrew, just think SSB.
Yeah, I follow a little bit easier because at least I think there's a framework.
No, because you were on the committee.
yeah, exactly. But anyway, I just raised that. I mean, I do think it's hard to decide like who's the CEO of an organization that we're deciding what the organization is going to do. I mean, the different skill sets for a direct service provider doing contracting for the county to run the job centers is a different job than overseeing contracts for outside entities and basically being a contract monitor and providing oversight, which is a far different role, and providing the kind of strategic direction for what the continuum of services are, which is a very different role and a different type of CEO, and perhaps even a different type of organization and board. And so we're hiring a CEO, we're replacing the CEO, we're deciding on these things, and I think we got to figure out what the order of these things are and make sure the order makes sense and has some strategic direction to it.
Okay. I think we're doing that right now. We're saying WorkSource Montgomery will focus on the job centers. The organization will hire CEO and staff that will have high proficiency in running that operation. And we will build towards taking that program back in-house, not having it as a contract. So that is as clear as it can be as far as I'm aware. But let's hear.
Can I ask a clarification on that? Because that I wasn't clear on. Are the job centers, we're planning on moving those back in-house, or the idea is that the job centers are going to stay as the core primary function of WorkSource Montgomery, that rather than contract out that role is going to do that in-house? That is going to be what WorkSource Montgomery does as their primary function, maybe their exclusive function. And then in-house are going to be some of the other roles that WorkSource Montgomery has been asked to do currently that county government is going to take back to take in-house. What you just said, and I just want to make sure I was hearing it correctly so we're all on the same page, was that we're going to build up this apparatus in WorkSource Montgomery for the job centers, and then we're going to plan on bringing it back in-house eventually, and that would beg the question of why we're building something up to take it back. Why don't we just bring it in-house before we construct it?
Okay. I've tried to explain this a couple times. Maybe I'm not doing a great job. Mr. Howie, and then Gene.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Smith, would you like to go first?
Sure. I guess I was gonna frame it in this regard, and hopefully I'm paraphrasing what I heard from the council members today. So, previously under what Mr. Howie shared, where he was going to take the organization, the council members expressed confidence in that leadership and that approach, which would be having WorkSource define its mission in a more pointed way, bring a lot of the functions potentially inside WorkSource to run the job centers, and obviously staff the workforce development board so they perform their important function for the county and go after the resources we need to. Given that the council, knowing that that is no longer going to happen because we're kind of left up with the question mark of who's going to be the leader for WorkSource, the council's only real leverage in this, besides the money it chooses to appropriate each year for WorkSource, is the designation, and that comes up in 8 months. And so the county or the committees today can say, listen, where Mr. Howie was taking this is where we want it to go. And if we don't, if the new leadership isn't going to take it there, and that maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, like we don't want to designate WorkSource to do this work, we'll go find someone else to do this work for us. So I think the committee members have a lot of leverage to say we want to see this happen. And then ultimately WorkSource needs to decide as a private organization, is that what they're going to do in order to be the county's workforce development organization? Does that sound like what I summarized things well? I'll also look at Mr. Howie because I see he's smiling, but I'll leave it there. I think that's where we're at, and that's why it's important for council members to indicate where they'd like it to go.
Yeah,
Leonard.
I agree, Mr. Smith. No, yeah, yeah, well stated, well stated. Yeah, we sort of can get kind of mixed up, confused with the term in-house. And I think that's probably where it comes from. But just one of the factors that has been really encouraging to me over a period of time is this conversation that we're having with you right now, a similar conversation with the executive staff and with the Workforce Development Board. They're all in sync. And so therefore, in moving forward, with just take the announcement, the position description for the executive director, again, newly renamed, not CEO, but executive director, it includes all of those skill sets that are needed to run job centers, to execute the monitoring and compliance function, because that's, we have a lot of interaction with the state on monitoring and compliance. So that's a piece of it. So whether you're monitoring a contractor to do the work, or you're responding to monitoring questions from the state or federal government, that's one of the skill sets: monitoring, compliance, and then operating a center. So I think we're all on the same page, and there's not really a cart before the horse issue with the search for the executive director, because we are anticipating that, not really anticipating, we know what the need is, and the need is to be able to operate the job center. So I think we're going to be okay there. But I think also Mr. Smith correctly summed up where I think we are with that.
Billy.
And just to sum it up again, I think, yes, that's step 1A. That's step 1A. And I'm glad to hear that the job application has that criteria in it. And so then presumably the people who are interested are applying, have that background. And then once that person is selected, I think that's when the secondary questions of, do we augment the staff to do the work of the job center internally and redirect that WIOA funding from the state internal to WorkSource for that, or do we continue with the Grant and Associates or some other contractor, or do we figure it out for a few months and then make a different plan? I think all that can come after, but the number one is getting the right person that has that background. To our previous conversation, Mr. Howie, that can make that assessment and understand the landscape and then move from there. Would you agree with that?
I agree, and also continue to lean or start leaning heavily on the Workforce Development Board. I know that the executive is. So they are currently looking at this model on which is the best way to go. And they're taking a very, data-oriented approach to it. So
great.
Let's make sure that process actually works the way it's intended to work.
All right. Thank you.
Comments on this, or okay, Gene?
I just wanted to add the council staff's perspective on the contractor versus in-house at WorkSource Montgomery. I mean, I agree that it needs to be looked at after the new executive director is on board, and certainly I might recommend that the committees meet with that executive director following their hiring to have this conversation. My primary view of that is the in-house model of having WorkSource do that work primarily is, one, the WIO money is only a part of, although it's a large part of WorkSource's budget. But two, like as Ms. Navarro noted, and just as the council has noted, the ability to be nimble, the WorkSource should be able to contract for some things, but having the nimbleness and insuredness of being able to augment areas of the county that are not just the Wheaton Job Center or the Germantown Job Center can only be done if it's doing it in-house. It requires an extra level of effort if the council wants to add additional resources to East County, because then WorkSource would need to contract with someone to do that versus augmenting the resources they already have, which is part of the reason why council staff believes having WorkSource take that work on primarily makes a lot of sense. Because then when the executive director comes and gives an update There's direct accountability, but there's also a direct understanding that if additional resources are needed, that ask could be made in order for the council to consider those priorities.
All right, I wanted to clarify something that was said. It was a reference made to the job description. Leonard, do you believe that the job description that is currently being recruited for adequately captures the consensus of this group today?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. But more importantly, once the interview process is actually defined, that's, it's going to be incumbent upon the panel or panels, however that's structured, to ensure that it's followed through and not to be sidetracked.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So along those lines, I hearken back to when the Board of Education was looking for a new superintendent. And they actually asked some members to meet with Dr. Smith before he became superintendent, because this is a really important thing. It's something that we spend a lot of time with, obviously. And so it's my hope, Mr. Fletcher, that when it comes to this appointment, obviously, we don't want to stand in the way of the interview process and the panels that are there, but certainly when you've identified a person, because there's been so much in terms of the history, I would hope that at least with our council president, if not with leaders of the various committees of jurisdiction, one of the two or both or all encompassing, you give that opportunity just as you would for any other director who you bring over to the council, because this is going to be incredibly important. And I think, again, this was part of the challenges that we faced at first in terms of giving us some of our stumbling blocks. And so I really hope that we'll be able to do this in a collaborative way so that we can ensure that everybody feels good about this moving forward, and that, just as Mr. Howie said in the spouse, that those ideologies are adhered to in terms of who this final candidate may end up being for executive director.
Okay, so why don't we go back to Gene now, and what other topics do we need to get into? I mean, I think we've covered a lot. We've gotten to the heart of the issue, we've discussed it, and then we have consensus. What else?
I agree, and so the only other item I speak about in the memo, and that Mr. Howie spoke about in June when the committees met, is the kind of combined board structure of Workforce Montgomery. The executive didn't send any information regarding about that, although that wasn't discussed in the two memos. But early in middle of 2018, Workforce's bylaws were changed so that the Workforce Development Board, the county's board, that's the federally mandated one, became part of its governance structure. And given the needs for the Workforce Development Board to do its work, which includes Workforce Montgomery, but isn't solely Workforce Montgomery, it makes very little sense for it to be involved in the day-to-day operations and the fiduciary responsibilities of that organization. And so Mr. Howie was beginning to work with both boards to kind of extricate the Workforce Development Board from Workforce's board and have a Workforce board by itself that just overlooks the organization. Council staff believes that needs to happen regardless of whether Mr. Howie's there or not, because currently the Workforce Development Board is assumed with responsibilities that it does not need to be working with directly for Worksource, so that can be the governance structure and responsibility of a Worksource board. The only thing that currently the bylaws would need to be amended, so the executive director would need to work with both boards to get them amended. And currently the county, unlike say the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, has no say in who's the board members for Workforce Montgomery. That they're self-elected within their own governance structure. And so ultimately, if these two boards were separated, the Workforce board would self-populate based on its bylaws.
Okay. Mr. Howie, can you share some reflections here?
This was clearly one of the more frustrating components for you all, I'm sure. And I don't think it was that much different for the actual board members. The unification, and I think that's the term they officially used, of the boards. I understood what the intent was, to really simplify and streamline decision making and meeting participation, but we all know that it ultimately ended up with the county losing its workforce development board. And it really became an uber organizational board of directors. Hence the title, WorkSource Montgomery Board of Directors, and workforce development sort of fell off. As Mr. Smith indicated, in response to one of the questions during our June work session, I noted what a revised and restated set of bylaws would look like that officially, from the organization standpoint, separated the boards. I will tell you that the two chairs, Mark Drury for the Workforce Development Board and Gordon Ellis for the WorkSource Board of Directors, they understand that there are two boards and they understand what their charges are. Gordon understands that he is essentially, his board, the WorkSource Montgomery Board of Directors, is the operational board for the organization to ensure that it has the resources, it has the infrastructure that it needs to carry out its role as a corporate entity within the state of Maryland. And Mark Drury understands that he's charged with the program piece of advancing the workforce development mission, and that he does not have the role and responsibility to deal with day-to-day organizational issues of WorkSource Montgomery, Inc. Now, that said, there are currently 23 or 25 members of the Workforce Development Board. That's actually on the low side. When you look at what other boards around the state have, they're at the 30-ish count. So I would hope that there will be some efforts down the road to add to that board, because when I'm looking at committee work, as you all know, you've been on many committees, that's where the work gets done. And I know that Mark Drury wants to make sure that he has the appropriate number of people needed to really staff and operate these committees, because this is a working board. So that will need to happen, and I'm sure Mr. Fletcher will be able to handle and take care of that process. On the WorkSource Montgomery Board of Directors, by design, that should be no more than 9 members. It's anywhere between 7 and 9 members of that entity, and that's again to guide the operations. I've actually been participating in conversations with Gordon Ellis and talking to members who are currently in a status that they're not even sure which board they're on. If they're not on the Workforce Development Board, then they know they're not on that board. But for many of those, or for several of those, there was a desire to see if they want to participate in the organizational board. And so hopefully I've been helpful in that process to help clarify the distinction between the two. But at my last count, I think Gordon was up to about 5 or so who have committed to being on that board. Once that board gets up to that 7, that magical 7 number, I'm just estimating at that point, but you get to the magic 7 number, then one of the first actions will be to address the bylaws and to make that official. But the bylaws have no relevance to the Workforce Development Board. That board was duly appointed and assigned by the county executive and approved by the council. So they are their own entity. It's just the other piece that they need to clean that up. So everybody's back on the page of being an organizational board of directors and dealing with all of the unification and elected versus non-elected members that really run throughout. So as I said, I took the first step at that. I am an attorney, but not that type of attorney. So I'm sure that much more keen minds will take that document, do what it needs to do to it, so that the organization can officially have the restated, voted, and have their own independent bylaws.
Okay, so let's talk about how to just enact that, operationalize that. Your last day is Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So the organization will be without a director for some period of time. How do we follow up on Rome?
Gordon Ellis, the board chair, he is serving. He has announced that he is going to serve in an interim capacity. He's not going to carry the title of interim director, but he will be your point of contact on these matters.
Okay.
And I'll make sure that the contact information, that everybody has that relevant information.
And the very clear path that you are explaining about the boards, he knows that, and he'll be able to follow through on that.
Yes, I do believe it will.
Okay. And Gene, maybe you can follow up and set up a call, and the notes from this meeting can help clarify that as well. And then Mr. Fletcher as well. I don't think anyone disagrees with what you're saying. So it's just now let's make sure that the
You have to make it happen. You have to make
ball
it
is
happen.
not dropped. Okay. Andrew.
Yeah, Mr. Howie, on Friday when you leave at 5 o'clock, and I guess the board chair will step in to effectively, handle the day-to-day operations, at least for an interim period of time. What is the rest of the staff currently at that point?
You mean, what are they? They will continue to carry out their functions. I'm not sure your question again, Councilmember.
Yeah, what does the staff look like today? Without you, the board chair will be stepping in, I guess, to handle the responsibilities of what will ultimately be the executive director in
Okay, I see.
former fashion. What does the rest of the staff complement? I mean, you don't have to use names, but just from an organizational.
Right.
Well, there's been a lot of turnover there, so I just want to make sure I'm kind of understanding what it will look like.
Well, since I've been around, there hasn't been any turnover.
Prior to you. No, I understand. I want to make sure.
Prior to me, yes.
Yeah.
No.
You're leaving, so I think we've already explained how much faith and confidence we have in you, but we're hoping that our faith and confidence doesn't leave with you. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
No, we have a dedicated team assigned to accounting and finance functions, communication, the American Job Center managing the relationship with Grant Associates, business outreach. We have all of the functions carried out. We still, just as WorkSource Montgomery contracted out with Ross and then Grant Associates, we also have a bevy of contractors to carry out some of the basic tasks in IT, for example, healthcare and benefits. Those contracts are still in place that the organization has to carry out the more administrative functions. But the team is there. The team is operating, and will just report to Gordon Ellis on matters, and Gordon will serve as the decision maker on daily issues moving forward by his own desire. And I'm sure that's under the expectation that dealing with the expectation from the executive that the organization carry out a thorough, but let's not take forever with this type of process. We have already cut off the due date for the resumes, for the applications. I think at this point there might be somewhere between eight or nine seemingly good candidates. I have scanned the resumes. I'll look at them in a little bit more detail. And as quite frankly, as I told our team, I'm just a phone call away. If anybody has any questions, it's not like I'm going to the moon or something. So I have held myself out to answer any questions if need be.
I appreciate that. I just want to fill into this a little bit. So, how many full-time equivalent? Your position will be vacant the day that you leave on Friday at 5 p.m. or whatever time you're finished. How many? Accepting that, so that's one executive director. How many full-time equivalents?
I think 7. We have 7 and 3 contractors, but the contractors are essentially, they're not FTEs, but they fill the positions of full-time employees.
So 7 full-time and then 3 basically full-time contractors. Okay.
It might be 8. I'd have to look at my list. I might have to look at my list.
Okay, and then what is the timeline exactly for when this board chair serving as the interim is expected to go, and when a new person is expected to be selected and hired? Do you have a sense of that?
I know that Gordon Ellis will start on that process. I believe it's at some point next week to start forming the interview groups and then start moving forward from there. But the expectation is that within a month and a half or so to have completed that process. Now you have to factor in, of course, whoever is offered a position, time it takes for them to extricate themselves from where they are. But I know that he was operating on a month and a half to 2 month maximum process.
Okay, so we expect that an offer is going to be made before the end of the calendar year.
I would hope.
Basically,
I would,
yeah. Okay. I just want to, I believe in like setting the goalposts and then determining whether or not we've hit it. So, okay, I appreciate it.
And also, just to point out that you asked for the staff members. Of course, the staff member that you communicate with on a regular basis anyway, Judy Jablow, she's still around doing great work. So she will be your primary point of contact from the council.
Okay. Well, if you could send over the full staff list and then whatever contacts for whatever purposes that you would make sense before you leave on Friday, so our staffs and we know who to contact for particular issues related to constituents, that would be very helpful. And I will just, if you could report back that it's our operating assumption that there's going to be an offer made before the end of the calendar year, unless we hear otherwise, because that's what we've been told.
That's what I hope. I'm not Gordon Ellis, so that will actually come from Gordon what that exact timeline is going to be. So I don't have a role in that, but that would be what I would look for.
Okay, well, if you could share that's our expectation, unless we hear from him, then I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Very good.
Hans. So one of the things that I do want to make very clear, and Mr. Howie, I appreciate you recognizing Ms. Jablow, who I know very well, who's been very committed in her position, is also in terms of what it is regarding staffing. And again, for me, I'm just a big proponent in leadership dictating to staff what direction they go in. And so I want to make it very clear to the WorkSource Montgomery staff that no one's talking about replacing an entire cohort of staff and bringing in someone else as we talk about additional resources that are necessary to stand up some of the new things that we want to have happen. We're talking about accentuating and growing the presence of WorkSource Montgomery. We're not talking about removing or getting rid of anyone. And so I just want to make that very clear because, again, it is important. The workforce and the people who are doing the job each and every day trying to help people in our community are very important. Just as Councilmember Navarro said, it's important that a lot of them reflect the community. Some of them do. And so especially because of that, I want to make sure that they understand that they've been in a difficult position up to this point, right? And again, with you've done a great job. And I've talked to some of the staff directly. And some of the staff that I've talked to and gotten feedback from them about the frustrations that they've had. But they were so energized seeing a leader like you in place. And that's what, again, I just want to close by saying those are the kinds of things. And, Mr. Fletcher, I hope you're taking notes here as we can translate this to the board and to what's going on. This is why it's so important because people believed in you, Mr. Howie, right? So let me just close by saying that. My good friend, Johnny O, who is up there, he and I have talked at great lengths about you. He also believes in you. So that just says about the impact and what it is that you do. And that's what great leaders do. Great leaders have people who believe in them. And so from that perspective, we'll need to make sure that that same embodiment that you possess is going to be in whoever this next leader is going to be. And I hope that in the meantime, as you heard from Councilmember Friedson, that our stand-in, right, and I appreciate him being a stand-in, can do that and hold folks together because there have been so many folks who were very concerned about the direction of WorkSource Montgomery. We're very concerned about, them being able to do their jobs. And so once again, we find ourselves in a tumultuous position where folks are starting to ask questions, right? And so the reason why I'm addressing this is because I have people asking me questions. So let me just be very clear. This is in response to what staff are asking and what they're concerned about. And so let me just, again, reassure folks that as we try and get this right, we want to make sure that a person like you, who has the qualities like you, who has the vision like you, is going to be able to take us to the next level. And so, again, I just want to close by saying that I really appreciate everything that you've done because you inspired folks. You inspired hope in them in terms of really turning the corner and getting some great things done. And I hope that that continues with whoever the next executive director will be. So thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. Now, I'll just close from my point by just saying that the staff, as you noted, they've been through a lot over the past couple of years, and to a person, they have more than just hung in there. They have really excelled, and then you throw COVID on top of that. So I've been nothing but proud of the work that they've done. But if you know a little bit about me and my background, my first job was as an infantry officer in the United States Marine Corps, and my approach to leadership is very defined. But that comes with it the understanding that leadership changes, and it's incumbent upon the team to pick up and then help to move the organization forward. So I've tried to be as transparent as I could possibly be during our staff meetings, keeping them up to speed, up to date on all of these conversations that we've been having, with the understanding that that at a point in the, now it's more than just a near future. It's Saturday morning. It's Monday morning. It's this is your show. You have the ability to shape what the organization is going to look like for the new leadership coming in. Make sure you take advantage of that and exercise your responsibilities to the absolute highest level that you can. Echoing that even in taking on new responsibilities, of course, it's going to require a reorganization within WorkSource on how we're structuring. But as you indicated, council member, it's not about replacing people. It's about understanding that, okay, we're going to focus on this. We have to talk about strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats here, folks, to make sure that people are appropriately positioned to do the work. And it's workforce development. It's doable. It's extremely doable. You just have to have the desire to get it done. And I know that the team actually does.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Howie, thank you. Your time with us well spent. It was a gift, and I think we're in a much better place than we were than when you arrived. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the support and for continuing to support workforce development and WorkSource Montgomery. Appreciate that much.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I think we've accomplished a lot for today. There is more conversation to be had about the other elements of a workforce strategy, and we'll turn to that next. But I think for now, it's most important that we have achieved clarity and consensus on this particular bigger item, and now we can move forward, I think, more confidently. So we will adjourn the meeting. Any other comments? All good? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Take care. Stay safe, everyone.